If you woke up in the Middle Ages, you would smell it before you opened your eyes. Not the scent of bread, not morning dew, not fresh air. Rot. Human waste baking beneath stone walls, animal blood drying in alleyways, smoke clinging to damp straw floors, and the sour musk of bodies that had not truly bathed in months. We like to imagine medieval Europe as a world of knights, castles, and towering cathedrals. But beneath the stained glass and shining armor was a daily war against filth. A war most people were losing. The Middle Ages were not dirty because people didn't care. They were dirty because they didn't have a choice. Forget hot showers. Forget plumbing. Forget the simple miracle of turning a handle and watching waste disappear. A medieval morning began with a splash of cold water from a basin. If you were lucky, faces and hands were rinsed, the rest of the body stayed untouched. Many doctors warned that bathing too often was dangerous. They believed hot water opened the pores and allowed deadly air to seep inside. Water, to them, could kill you. So instead of soap and steam, the wealthy trusted linen. Fresh white undergarments were believed to pull sweat and impurities from the skin. A nobleman might change his shirt several times a day, convinced the cloth was absorbing his corruption. The outer garments remained heavy and unchanged. The illusion of cleanliness mattered more than the reality. But nothing exposes medieval life more brutally than the toilet. In castles, a stone seat called a garderobe extended from the wall. Beneath it, a moat or a cesspit. There was no flushing system, only gravity and time. In summer, the smell rising from below could sting the eyes and tighten the throat. Clothing was often hung inside these chambers because the sharp ammonia fumes were believed to kill fleas. Yes, they stored garments above human waste on purpose. In crowded cities, things were worse. Buckets were emptied into streets, communal pits overflowed, rain mixed sewage into thick rivers of sludge. And when those pits filled to the brim, men known as gong farmers descended into them at night, waist-deep in human excrement, breathing toxic fumes that could knock them unconscious in seconds. Many died from the gases alone. They worked in darkness so others wouldn't have to see what civilization truly rested upon. And then there is the question most people are too afraid to ask. What did they use before toilet paper? The rich used scraps of wool or linen. Everyone else turned to moss, straw, hay, leaves, whatever was within reach. Rough, abrasive, often crawling with insects. Hygiene was a gamble. Parasites were nearly universal. Intestinal worms lived inside most adults, feeding silently on what little nutrition they had. For many, this was normal. A fact of life. A companion from childhood to death. Yet despite all this, medieval cities once had bathhouses. Large wooden tubs filled with steaming water. Places of laughter, gossip, business, and intimacy. But as fear spread and morality tightened, suspicion grew. The church condemned them as dens of sin. Then came 1348, the Black Death. When the plague tore through Europe, physicians claimed hot water opened the pores and allowed poisonous miasma to enter the body. Dirt suddenly became protection. A layer of grime was seen as a shield against death. Bathing declined sharply. Some rulers reportedly bathed only once or twice in their entire lives. Instead, they drenched themselves in perfume, musk, rosewater, cloves, cinnamon. Sweet fragrances layered over sour sweat and stale fabric. The result was not freshness, but a suffocating cloud of sweetness masking decay. Dental pain was another horror. Toothaches were blamed on invisible worms chewing inside the tooth. Treatments included inhaling the smoke of burning henbane seeds, pressing hot irons to the gums, or pouring acidic mixtures into cavities. When pain became unbearable, The barber surgeon pulled the tooth without anesthesia. A scream, a jerk of the head, blood on the floor. Even the floors themselves were alive. Homes were layered with rushes, dried grasses meant to insulate and absorb spills. But the bottom layers were rarely removed. Beneath fresh straw lay years of rot, spit, vomit, dog urine, spilled ale, food scraps, a soft, shifting carpet of decay beneath every step. Germs were unknown. If a room smelled of lavender, it was considered clean. Invisible bacteria did not exist, at least not in the human mind. Lice infested wigs and hair. Fleas nested in clothing seams. Kings scratched beneath velvet, just as peasants scratched beneath wool. Ivory combs and sticky resin traps offered small relief. The itching never truly stopped. And yet, amid all this, there was effort. Hands were washed before meals because people ate with their fingers. Water was poured from ornate aquamaniles shaped like lions and dragons. Harsh soap made from animal fat and wood ash stripped grease from skin. In the streets, pigs roamed freely, devouring garbage. Tanners soaked hides in urine and animal feces. The air itself felt heavy, a mixture of smoke, rot, livestock, and humanity compressed inside stone walls. Travelers wrote that you could smell a city long before you saw it. By modern standards, it seems unbearable. But medieval people were not lazy, not ignorant, not indifferent. They were surviving in a world without germ theory, without sewage systems, without antibiotics, without understanding the invisible enemies around them. Their immune systems hardened through constant exposure. They used vinegar and alcohol as primitive disinfectants. They relied on herbs and tradition. They were fighting biology with guesswork. When we look back at the Middle Ages, we shouldn't just see filth, we should see endurance. Every clean shirt changed, every hand washed before bread was broken, every cesspit emptied under moonlight. Cleanliness was not a habit. It was a battle for dignity in a world that constantly dragged the human body back toward decay. And beneath the shadow of cathedrals reaching toward heaven, that battle was fought in the mud.